So I really look forward to these monthly half days because one of the, I don't know, I guess greatest honors that I can have at this stage of my life anyway is being able to share these teachings of the Dharma that, stretches back like 2,600 years. And, I know for me and millions of others, it's had a profound impact. And the opportunity to share it is really humbling. And being a teacher, it's made me be a better student. It's made me be much more reflective in my own life. And, everything that the meditation is supposed to do for us, right? Cultivate this clarity and this wisdom and this compassion and equanimity and such. It provides me that platform to manifest it, which is really pretty awesome. So, and today's talk is on purpose, right? And I'll be honest, it was not on my radar. I go away on the summers for retreat, and after retreat, I kind of reflect on what I studied and what I learned, and I kind of put together a list of what I want to share during the course of the upcoming year, and yeah, purpose wasn't wasn't on the list. And then, something happened in January. I don't know if it was the new year or what it was, but few conversations with different, completely unrelated individuals just turned into these conversations about purpose. And it really got me reflecting on what it is, how it's affected me in my life, and what the Buddhist perspective on purpose is. So hopefully, some of that will come out today. When we think about purpose, often questions like, what am I supposed to do? What's my calling? Why am I here? Right? These are kind of, what I have always asked myself. Why am I on this earth? Right? What is my purpose? And that has always been kind of okay, what am I supposed to do with my life? And that's a tangible, outside of me seek. And what we'll find out as we go through this is really whenever we seek outside, we're not finding the true answers that we need. So from the Dharma, the Buddhist perspective, right? What reduces suffering in my life and the life of others? What aligns my life with compassion, with the wisdom that's gained in these teachings? That's kind of the overarching theme of what wisdom, what purpose can land. So sometimes, especially when we're using a specific word in a topic, I like to come up with a definition. Okay? So I always start with my dear friend Merriam-Webster. So purpose, there's a noun and a verb. So the noun, the reason for which something is done or created or for which something exists. Right? And the purpose of this space is to meditate. Okay. The verb side, design or intend for a particular use. Okay. The one that I'm kind of leaning into is have as one's intention or objective. So, kind of modifying that slightly, I came up with purpose is the direction of our energy towards what values us most deeply. So it's not necessarily a job, right? A role that we play. Or anything really big or grand, right? Purpose is about orientation of the heart. I always envision purpose as one thing, right? I remember when I got the job before I have the one now. Like within a week, I was like, I shouted to the rooftops, I finally found it. This is my calling. This is why I'm here. And I felt that deeply. Right? In my heart, I felt that deeply. But it wasn't quite that simple. But yet it was. What I discovered was the role I was playing, the job I had in this specific environment. That was not my calling. But what I was doing at that time, I began a path of helping and healing people. That is where my calling landed. Not the role, but the intention. You know, the Buddha never talked about finding our destiny, right? That's not anything that ever came out of any of his teachings. But what he talked about from day one until the day he passed was suffering, right? The Four Noble Truths is where it all started and where it ended and where it continued, right? So understanding what is suffering, right? The fact that we all do have suffering in our lives. We're not going to avoid it. Nobody will. Okay? What is suffering? What its causes? You know, the clinging, wanting things to be different than they are. You know, the third truth is the fact that there is relief possible. There is a path forward. And then the fourth truth is that path. So it's not about, purpose is not about, you know, an egocentric self-actualization, right? It's about liberation from suffering. Doing that in the service of ourselves and others. And that's what we really, in a large part, spent the last hour and a half doing. Okay. Thich Nhat Hanh wrote, "The meaning of life is to be alive." So our purpose is not somewhere else. It's in this moment, right? Living in awareness. Right? Suzuki Roshi in Zen Mind Beginner's Mind wrote, "The true purpose of Zen is to see things as they are." Right? So it's less about becoming something or becoming someone, but about seeing clearly in this moment. Right? So as we practice that, as we sat, right, the instructions were, can we just be with? Can we just simply observe what our senses are bringing into our mind stream? Not the stories, not the wanting things to be different than they are, but just simply being with. So why is this important? If we're trying to orient the heart in a direction of meaning for us, if we don't have that, We're kind of taking that shotgun approach. Right? And we're drifting. We're distracting ourselves. We're feeling fragmented from ourselves and from society. Psychologically, purpose, it organizes our psyche. It gives us that direction, right? Spirituality helps us to develop and actualize a path. Viktor Frankl, one of my favorite authors, wrote that he observed those that had meaning could endure immense suffering. So in our spiritual path, that means being able to metabolize, be with the suffering that we all experience. The Buddha is a figure not that we idolize. The Buddha is a figure that we wish to embody. Okay? The Buddha grew up in a palace with everything that he could ever desire. All his wants and needs were met. He never had to leave. He left because he found people suffering from sickness, birth, sickness, and old age and death. And he thought there's got to be a better way to relieve people's, to alleviate that, and to relieve people's suffering. He could have easily done what he did, actualized the path to freedom, and went back to his lap of luxury. Right? But he didn't. He chose to teach for the balance of his lifetime, about 45 years. So his purpose of actualizing these teachings evolved into his service of teaching them. And one of the teachings he actualized was what's called the Bodhisattva vow. Okay, and a Bodhisattva is somebody who their sole purpose is to help other beings. Kind of like equated to the pilot, right? Or the last person off the plane as it's going down or whatever, right? Or a captain on a ship. Right? And within the Bodhisattva vow, it says, beings are numberless. I vow to free them all. And it's not an egotistic statement. It's about aligning the heart with compassion. Mary Oliver wrote, "Tell me, what is it you plan to do with this one wild and precious life?" With purpose, it really sharpens what the meaning of that question is. But it also helps us to find the clarity to the answer. So you might be asking, because I was, how do you find it? Right? I don't think it's found through any dramatic insight. We're not gonna, there's not gonna be a lightning coming and hitting us while we're sitting on our cushion. But it's through the quiet listening, right? And you can find that through what I'll call 3 doorways. Okay, the first one is pay attention to what breaks your heart. Right? Compassion often reveals what our purpose is. So what suffering do you not turn away from? What injustices stir you? And what beauty moves you? Notice where your heart naturally moves towards suffering. The Dalai Lama famously said, "Our prime purpose in this life is to help others." And that's where we find that answer, in the heart. The second doorway is what brings you sustained joy. Not these fleeting pleasures, but a steady warmth that arises when you're doing something that really aligns with your values. Purpose emerges where humility meets joy. The Zen teacher Joan Halifax wrote, "Compassion is not a relationship between the healer and the wounded. It's a relationship between equals." And the third doorway I hinted at earlier, it's about intention. It's about wise or right intention. Right? So here we can ask ourselves, does the path I'm on reduce greed? Does it reduce hatred? Does it reduce delusion? If the answer is yes, you're probably on the right path. And this path involves renunciation from things that cause us suffering and others. And it creates goodwill, creates kindness. Right? We hold harmlessness as a core value for ourselves and others. So is purpose like a singular fixed entity? No, I don't think so. And really, from the Buddhist perspective, nothing is. Right? One of the core tenets of Buddhism is everything conditioned is impermanent. And everything is conditioned. So therefore, everything is impermanent. All right? Your purpose at age 20 will be mostly different than what it is at age 50, right? At one time in our lives, maybe our prime purpose was parenting, right? Then maybe it shifted to healing or creating or learning or serving, right? As our insight deepens, our purpose will flow with that. Right? And again, that's where the Buddha's example comes in, right? He was a seeker. Then he was an ascetic. Then he became the awakened one, right? From there he taught. He built communities. So impermanence means purpose is responsive, not rigid. Poet Rainier Maria Reiki wrote, "Live the question now." I love that. It's so simple. Right? Use the verb definition of purpose and bring it to the now. Purpose is the continuous act of aligning with wisdom with this moment. I'll share a couple of short poems from a couple of unknowns. The first one's called Purpose. A crown, not to crown you wear, not a title on a door, not applause, but a quiet turning of the heart, like a sunflower following light, not because it must, but because it cannot help itself. Purpose is that turning. And from a Zen-inspired, purpose does not ask, am I fulfilling my destiny? It flows, it nourishes, it moves. Purpose is not fixed, but it is true. So what is your purpose? I don't know. My purpose today was to sit here and give this teaching. Right? Tomorrow it might be different. And that's okay. But the one thing I know, that purpose is here. It's not here. It's not. I used to believe that the dollar equated with my purpose, or the title equated with my purpose. And it's about helping ourselves, helping others, being of service. That's why we're here on this earth, is to help. And that's going to look different for everybody. And that's a beautiful part of it.